Jangan sampai ada waktu terbuang saat mengatur uang. Bayangin kalau kita bisa intip saldo tanpa harus login tanpa ngetik, lihat semua akun di satu layar, kirim uang ke nomor handphone, transaksi reksadana dan obligasi kapan saja, buka tabungan, kartu kredit dan pinjaman, transfer dan kirim resi nggak pakai lama, cek mutasi sampai 12 bulan bisa dengan Permata Mobile X. Ratusan fitur dalam satu aplikasi untuk Indonesia tanpa stres. Jangan sampai ada waktu terbuang saat mengatur uang. Bayangin kalau kita bisa intip saldo, lihat semua akun di satu layar, kirim uang ke nomor handphone, transaksi reksadana dan obligasi kapan saja, buka tabungan, kartu kredit dan pinjaman, transfer dan kirim resi nggak pakai lama, cek mutasi sampai 12 bulan bisa dengan Permata Mobile X. Ratusan fitur dalam satu aplikasi untuk Indonesia tanpa stres.
Ketika karya adalah penggalan-penggalan realita, kadang berbagi ide itu perlu, sharing dan diskusi untuk hasil yang lebih maksimal. Aku ingin buku ini bukan hanya menginspirasi anak-anak, tapi juga para orang tua. Buat keluarga kami, traveling itu sarana buat belajar. Khususnya belajar tentang keindahan alam dan budaya Indonesia. Mama ngajarin saya bagaimana menebar inspirasi, menjaga semangat agar tetap punya manfaat. Dan bagi saya, legacy bukan cuma diwarisi, tapi dipelihara dengan segenap dedikasi.
Hari-hariku bersama si kecil dipenuhi dengan kejutan bahagia darinya. Ekspresi gemasnya tak pernah berhenti membuatku tersenyum. Untuk itu, ku berikan yang diperlukan sesuai kebutuhan dasarnya. Pigeon Baby Toiletries dilengkapi bahan hypoallergenic, halal, 0% coloring agent, dan pH balance. Pigeon, only love can beget love.
masih sepi aja, Ma.
Zaman lagi susah, semoga keadaan cepat membaik ya.
Ambil rumah dulu.
Silakan Mas. Mas, ini ada jas hujan. Pakai aja.
Mamaku percaya
Udah nggak apa-apa.
dalam situasi sesulit apapun,
Ya kurang Ci. Udah biarin gua aja.
harapan lahir dari setiap kebaikan kita.
Yang ditunggu, kesukaan Mama.
Berbagi harapan, arti dari kekayaan yang sejati. Baru Fish Prosperity Burger hanya di McDonald's.
Saat keaslian sudah sulit ditemukan, masih ada yang dengan setia menjaganya. Teh asli Indonesia, diramu dengan gula murni dan aroma melati. Terus menginspirasi untuk sebarkan kebaikan melalui kebersamaan. Kebaikan dan keaslian dalam kesegaran teh botol sosro.
Choice, so natural, so juicy.
Saat ini obat ampuh untuk melawan virus corona belum ada.
Saya ingin agar protokol kesehatan, perubahan perilaku di masyarakat menjadi perhatian kita. Kita fokus kampanye pakai masker.
Semua wajib pakai masker di media group. Disiplin memakai masker tidak hanya untuk melindungi diri dan sesama, tapi juga untuk menjaga Indonesia kita.
Mediaindonesia.com hadir dengan opini cerdas dan narasumber kredibel, mudah diakses, informasi berkualitas ada di genggaman Anda. Klik di browser Anda, www.mediaindonesia.com. dan temukan pandangan berbeda. Karena fakta bisa sama, sudut pandang boleh beda. Mediaindonesia.com, Views and News.
Mengawali hari dengan informasi terkini, menjadi sumber referensi dan inspirasi di setiap aktivitas. Melalui news video portal, segala informasi dapat disajikan cepat, akurat, dan lengkap. Dengan kekuatan teknologi digital, Medcom.id hadir dengan berita pilihan yang dikemas secara menarik. Medcom.id, digitally inspire people.
The Power of Understanding, GCM Group.
Selamat sore, Lip Friends. Selamat datang di Masterclass Preserving Indonesian Food Heritage, persembahan Lip Summit dan Prima Rasa. Saya Ita Baraja dari Prima Rasa. Saya akan mendampingi Anda semua selama acara Masterclass ini berlangsung. Sebelumnya, saya perlu jelaskan dulu tentang acara kita Lip Summit. LEAP yang merupakan singkatan dari Leading, Elevating, Aspiring, dan Empowering diselenggarakan dalam rangka perayaan Hari Ibu oleh Wanita.Network, platform bagi wanita Indonesia lintas usia, pendidikan, profesi, dan domisili. LEAP Summit sepenuhnya akan dilakukan secara virtual sebagai adaptasi kebiasaan baru di tengah pandemi COVID-19 saat ini. Namun, meskipun kita sedang dalam kondisi pandemik, bukan berarti kita tidak bisa saling berdialog, berbagi inspirasi, juga menambah wawasan untuk kehidupan yang lebih baik. Seperti tema dari LEAP Summit, yaitu The Catalyst for Women to Change, bahwa wanita bisa menjadi katalisator perubahan yang lebih baik. Bersama saya sudah hadir para panelis dan juga moderator. Sebelum kita mulai, saya akan bacakan dulu biodata singkat dari moderator kita, yaitu Vishal Kumar dari Indonesian Gastronomy Community. Beliau adalah salah satu Board of Directors di Indonesian Gastronomy Community. Juga aktif sebagai VP Operation di Yummy Corporation, yaitu Cloud Kitchen dan Food Management Solution pertama di Indonesia. Selamat sore, Mas Vishal. Bisa dengar suara saya?
Yes, jelas Mbak.
Oke, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Oh, we are great and we are so excited to have the masterclass today. Oke,
Thank you very much.
Untuk mempersingkat waktu, waktu dan tempat akan saya serahkan kepada Mas Vishal Kumar. Selamat mengikuti.
Okay, thank you. So, hello ladies, ibu-ibu, shall I call? Or should I just keep it casual?
Itu juga bisa.
Itu juga bisa, okay. So, it's nice to meet you guys. Good morning to you, Lara, all the way there. Good evening, I suppose.
Morning for me, so afternoon for you, so selamat sore.
Selamat sore, yes. Mungkin selamat malam for Jeanette, I suppose. She's an hour ahead.
Well,
Still sore?
belum sampai malam ya.
Okay.
Almost
Okay.
twilight.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And hello, Portri. Thank you guys for
Hello.
joining us. So today basically the topic is about how we can promote Indonesian food outside to make it casual. I'm not going to go to the difficult government issue or regulation. I'm just going to talk about what each individual as a food enthusiast can do or should do, or maybe you guys have already been doing, but promote it better. So at least everybody knows about it. So the topic will be around those islands, those issues. I suppose should you guys have any questions or something like that, just drop by, just ask me. That will be mostly 40 minutes of the first session, and then the remaining 20 to 15 minutes will be question and answers. Those are the types where the audience can ask, and I'll select few questions and pass it to them, and that's basically it. Okay.
Perfect.
So let me start with, I suppose, Lara. I didn't pick anyone; it's just on top of my list. So Lara, you started food because because of a lady called Margaret Talley, right?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
can
My
I refer her
grandmother.
or can I refer her as Popo?
Popo, yes, or
Yeah.
my nenek saya.
Oh yeah. Nenek.
Yes, Popo or nenek saya. But yes, so I grew up in Sydney, Australia, but my dad is from Timor, and he moved to Australia when he was 21 or 22. But when we were little, my sister and I, my Timorese grandmother moved to Sydney to live with us. And she would cook us banquets of Indonesian foods and put it on the table for dinner every evening, pushing my Australian mother out of the kitchen. So when we were little, we couldn't afford to visit Indonesia until I was a young adult. So my earliest memories of Indonesia is actually through its food, and that was my gateway to Indonesian culture was through the food that my grandmother put on the table and through the stories that my Indonesian aunties and my father and my grandmother would tell me when I was little. So for me, when I first went to Indonesia when I was 21, my grandmother had passed away by that point, but it really felt like coming home for the very first time. And it was quite an incredible and very strange feeling because it was a place I had never been to before, but it really felt very familiar to me because the smells and the flavors and the colors were exactly as they had described, but even more vibrant than I could have ever imagined. So I think it was from that point there that I went on a mission to really want to learn more about that half of my identity and also to recreate the flavors of my childhood. And that's why I wrote my Indonesian cookbook, Coconut and Sambal.
Coconut and Sambal.
That's kind of was the motivation behind it, was to really to capture all those memories that I grew up with and want to share Indonesian food with the world, because I think it's still very much a lesser known cuisine of the world.
I agree with you. It's a point to improve, to make it that way, because there's so much food that people out there need to know that even back then, before we got all the GPS, people would sail off just to find spices. And I think it's time to bring the food back and say, hey guys, this is what you sail off to the end of the world to get it. So yeah, okay. So that's from Lara. Now from Jeanette. I was reading your book. I noticed 1974. That was your first time in Indonesia.
Yes, before you were born, huh? I think before everybody was born.
You kind of catch my age there. But yeah, 1974. What brings you to Indonesia? What's your initial curiosity about Indonesia?
Well, my dad brought us on a family holiday. I mean, there's a bit of a dad theme here. He had a bit of money in his pocket and he wanted to take us on an adventure, I guess, basically, not your average kind of holiday. So we landed in Bali, and Yeah, for me, it was life changing. Obviously, I had no idea what it was going to be like, but my sister and I were pretty excited because there had been a very famous surf film released, a couple of years before that, a year or two, Morning of the Earth, and so we knew we were coming to some sort of, tropical island in Asia, which is a whole other story. So yeah, it was life changing, and I guess the food was a major part of the excitement, because you can imagine back then, in the 70s, coming from suburban Melbourne, even gado was mind blowing, because it was this idea of peanuts with kind of like a salad, so like peanut butter, and we ate frog's legs, which we were just like, oh my God. And even satay back then, meat on a stick was, like awesome for us. So everything about the first holiday was amazing. But of course, the food left a major impact on my life until now, actually.
Yeah, it's quite thorough in your book. I literally enjoyed both of your ladies' book. I was reading it and I was like, okay, this is so awesome. Now I need to learn to cook really. Like I enjoy food, but I do the other end of the business, the eating part.
You do the eating, yeah.
Yeah. But it is an inspiring way to make me think that I need to start more time in the kitchen.
Yes,
and Ibu Potri, so welcome Ibu. I hear you mentioned about Tante Sayur, and then how we should, I believe, educate Indonesian that vegetables can be eaten in a very different way. Can you tell us more about that part of yourself and Tante Sayur?
Yes, of course. Well, Tante Sayur, we are established on 2015. We are focusing on a home delivery in Jakarta, Bandung, and surrounding Jabodetabek. We are one of the leading organic store in Jakarta. As we started, we teach farmer how to do the organic, and then we educate ibu-ibu to make a breakfast, a very proper breakfast, and then how to make ideas for the dinner and also for the lunchbox. So they change this kind of healthy habit in the lifestyle.
Okay. How is it like? How's the customer looking into that section? Because to me, I suppose Indonesian like to eat something spicy, something big, and something fried.
Sorry. Sorry, I lost you.
Indonesian normally love to eat something spicy or something fried or something in large quantities and with lots of flavor. How does serving something organic treat them, or how do they react to that idea? Because I believe very little Indonesian understand the concept of organic.
We lost it.
For us, how we sell, excuse me, sorry? How we sell our product is, we didn't say that organic is healthy. Of course it's healthy, but we educate them that organic is way more better than the regular vegetable. And then we also educate them through the recipe. We know Indonesian people, they love to eat gorengan, deep fried, and then using sambal. Yes, we do that, but in another way. I mean, we educate also fried, but with the less oil or with the air fryer. The looks still look the same, but the method, it's healthier.
Okay. So thank you. We'll get back to you on that one. On the topic of food and common interest in eating, I have a question for Lara and Jeanette here. There's a broad similarities in both of your books. It's about coconut. You guys mentioned sambal differently, but you do highlight coconut. do you think that the world should use coconut differently, or is it still underrated? What are your thoughts about it? So, who would like to go first?
Are you happy for me to go first, Janet?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Sure. So when I came up with the title of Coconut and Sambal, for me, the reason why that title became what it was because as I researched the book and I traveled from the west of Sumatra to the east of Timor, going through Java and Sulawesi and Timor Bali, getting recipes from Maluku Islands and Kalimantan and so on. As we know, Indonesian food is very, very regional. And so there are very distinct flavor characteristics in every single region with specialized dishes. And so it was very hard as a very diverse cuisine to think of what really sums up Indonesian cuisine. And so for me, when I traveled across the regions, what I noticed were that the two things that I felt unified the cuisine was sambal and the coconut. And I guess relating to coconut specifically, what I really loved about Indonesian food philosophy is that they have very much a no waste philosophy. So that crosses from when you eat meat, obviously offal is celebrated, all parts of the carcass is used. And it also relates to the coconut, because what I loved about the coconut as an ingredient is that the nectar from the coconut is kind of extracted to produce palm sugar. You've got the coconut husk is used to kind of flavor and give fragrance to smoke and to fire, to flavor food. Obviously, coconut water is drunk. You create santan because of grated coconut mixed with water. You've got the coconut flesh in esteller and lots of lovely iced shaved desserts. You've also got the coconut actual shell being used for utensils and bowls. So what I thought was incredible about Indonesia is, and even actually the grated coconut that is used to make santan, I saw quite a few families use it to scrub stains off tiles. And so no part of the coconut is wasted. And so for me, I think the title of the book and talking about the coconut in such a celebratory way was really trying to showcase what is, I think, very much a core value for Indonesians, which is no waste philosophy, using every part of a produce or, plant or animal, and how that ingredient really does cross the many, many islands across Indonesia. So you can, although it's a very diverse cuisine, you can actually say there are a couple of elements of Indonesian cookery, whether it's rice or kerupuk or sambal or coconut, that you do see across all the different islands, regardless of where you go. So that was for me why the coconut was such an important ingredient to talk about.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So Jeanette, then.
Yeah. You really summed it up, Lara. So yeah, fantastic. I agree. And the coconut is, the tree itself is so romantic and beautiful. And I suppose for us in Bali, it goes deeper than all those things you mentioned. I mean, there's that serious spiritual side as well, because we use the coconut in Bali, we use it in all ceremonies, from the little golden coconut to the leaves, the young leaves, to making the offerings, things like that. So it is a really fantastic thing to pinpoint coconut, because it really is central to people's lives here on so many, many levels, isn't it? So, and who can eat, I mean, in Bali, we eat so much coconut, and actually we eat more grated coconut, I think, than, for example, coconut milk. But of course we do use the oil as well. And, it is present in the West, isn't it? I mean, in all those beauty products, and now I think more than ever before. I mean, it was sort of blacklisted a while ago. I know when I was teaching cooking, and I couldn't really talk about coconut oil, but it's sort of come back with a vengeance on many different fronts. So yeah, it is. It's a really important ingredient, and yeah, we love it. Yeah.
I agree. And to add to both of you, my grandma, she still practices the old massage that the Indian does.
Okay. Yeah.
She'll warm a coconut oil, and
yes,
the house will smell delicious. And even though you're not hungry, but you're gonna smell of the coconut. And she
especially
gonna
if you're roasting it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then she gonna massage it to the hair.
Oh, like a shirodara?
Yeah.
I did that as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then she's gonna massage my head, and then I'm gonna smell like food the whole day. I don't mind smelling like food the whole day. But then it really normally she does that after I have a very big like football competition where I come home and all sunburned, and then she'll be like, "Come here, let me take some heat off you." So because so she does that. So yeah,
I love that.
It goes all the way. Yeah, and now I suppose I'll go to Lara again. So Lara, you mentioned earlier before you start, when you explained the coconut, you said you travel from the east to the west of Indonesia. Yeah. How long was the trip here? Do you mind sharing more on like the fun part, the difficult part?
Sure. Yes. So, when my publisher agreed to, publish my book, I felt like such an honor was bestowed upon me to be able to, write about Indonesian food. But, I wasn't born in Indonesia. I have Indonesian heritage. I have Indonesian blood, but I felt I had a huge responsibility to really try to immerse myself in Indonesian food culture and learn as much as I could. I was very, very lucky that I had some very kind and generous friends, Indonesian friends in the food industry. Pak William Wongso is a very good friend of mine. I was introduced to him from Ibu Sri Owen, who is a London-based Indonesian food writer who is 85 years old, but is the doyen of Indonesian cookery. I would say she's the grandmother of Indonesian cookery, and she's certainly won a Lifetime Achievement Award at Janet's Ubud Food Festival before. So through Sri Owen and through Ibu Sri and Pak William, they introduced me to a network of home cooks across Indonesia that were able to teach me the most celebrated dishes of each of those regions. So I kind of set foot on Indonesian soil, with lots of warm leads to be able to, track down those people and to learn from them the dishes that belong to the region, but also that belong to perhaps their grandmother or their great grandmother, and so on. I also went to Janet's festival. I started actually, I think day 5. I landed in Bali, fresh off the plane, and I went to the Ubud Food Festival, and I must have met about 100 people. Janet's team and Janet gave me a media pass, so I think I must have interviewed every single presenter that was at that Ubud Food Festival, from Pak Data, who's a Balinese ceremony chef, Kieran Morland, who's the chef of Sansaka, lots of different people. And through that network, my network kind of grew. And I suddenly had a list of people in almost every destination that I wanted to visit, as well as new culinary destinations that perhaps weren't on my map to go to, but people said, you have to go to Makassar in Sulawesi, you have to go here, you have to go there. And then I also followed my nose. So I would land in a place like Padang in West Sumatra. I would talk to a taxi driver. I have, I guess, a moderate amount of Bahasa Indonesian. I'm still kind of hoping to get it to get better and better. But I was able to kind of communicate that I wanted to learn dishes of the region, and then the taxi driver or someone at a food market would say, oh, my cousin or my auntie or my mother or my grandmother, they're the person you need to spend time with. And the very next day, regardless of who I had spoken to, there they would be inviting me into their home. They would take, days off work. I have no idea how this all worked out, but they would take days off work. And for 2 or 3 days, I would be in someone's home from, visiting the food market at 6 a.m. because we know you've got to get there early, sometimes 5:30, and then finishing at maybe, 8 or 9 p.m. in the evening, sometimes midnight, depending on how many dishes we'd cook. And it was just incredible. I was treated like a member of, people's family. And I think that just is testament to the incredible, generous, kind and warm hospitality of Indonesians. So yes, I traveled from, Sumatra, Java, Sulawesi, Timor, Bali. Those were kind of the hotspots that I spent most of my time in. I spent about 6 months there in total. I came back to London to kind of refresh and get my thoughts together, and then went back again. But it was incredible, and I'm definitely wanting to write a second book. I'm definitely going to come back and research more. But for me, it was I'm still very much I feel like I'm a student of the cuisine. It's going to be a lifelong journey to learn about Indonesian food. I'm someone that doesn't live in Indonesia, so it's my responsibility as someone that is, I guess, a voice of the cuisine to, to the Western world, it's important for me to, to approach it humbly and to, and to know that I should always be learning about Indonesian food. And, I'm not an expert. I'm someone that loves it and is passionate about it, and I want to share it with the world. So that's kind of how I approach the research part of the book.
Okay. Thanks. So you guys have met, Jeanette and Lara have met.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, we have. Yeah.
Good.
Janet's been very helpful. So her and her team was so helpful to me during the
Okay. So
I'm just
thank
thinking
you.
how lucky you were, Lara, to travel back then. Yeah, I mean, it sort of makes me sad hearing all those places you went to that we can't really travel so much at the moment. Yeah,
I know. It was very spontaneous. I literally would book a flight. I'd say, "Oh, I think I'm going to go to this place in, somewhere tomorrow. I'm going to go back to Yogyakarta today, and then I miss it."
Yeah, me too.
It's a very positive impulse, so to say. Like, so you just wake up in the morning and say, "Okay, I gotta go to Makassar right now. I gotta try their food." Okay. I suppose that's something that I can share to the others, that I come from Indonesian gastronomic community. We would like the food to last. We don't mind foreign food. I'm not saying, oh, don't, but we welcome neighboring food. But for local Indonesian, go out there, just try something interesting. Do what Lara did, do what Jeanette did, do what Portri does. Just wake up in the morning, go out and say, oh, that's a long queue. Let me just stand there in queue. I'm not sure what they're selling, but it's a long queue, so it should be good. So I suppose I'm on that message as well. We need to broadcast those messages out. Okay, thank you. Now let me go to Portri. You mentioned something about teaching the farmer, petani, on how to improve the food, so to say, or educate it. Can you further elaborate on that part?
Yes. For teaching the farmer, we have a different method than other, teaching them how to do with the soil, how to know. What we do, we teach the farmer to taste their own produce. Most of the farmer, they don't eat their produce because first they don't know what they are. Sometimes they are not familiar with what they produce, and then they don't. Sometimes because they use pesticide, most of them they don't eat it. So we teach them to plant it in an organic way, and then after they produce, we are transformed into, like, so let's say, like a bread, or we made it in the dessert, and then we send to them, and then they learn, they produce it. Wow, this is very good. It's a new way to most of them, they just know how to what did you call it, rebus, what's the term in English, boil. They just boil the vegetable, but in other way we can make it a cake, we can turn into the sordo, and then we send to them, and then they are becoming proud of themselves. So they are we teach them to improve the taste. So instead, after they realize that organics method brings another taste on the vegetable, and then they are more into R&D. That's what we do with the farmer.
Okay. So normally they just farm and they just sell it off.
Yes.
So they don't know what does it actually taste, but then you actually educate them that, hey, this is your hard labor, this is what it tastes like, this is what we've been enjoying, basically, right?
Yes. Okay. So
Okay.
we also sometimes, if we also collaborate with the chefs. So after the chefs make something on our produce, and then we send to the farmer. So they are what did you call it? They are more like oh, this is what I do. It's being used like a celebrity chef. It's used on this restaurant, so they know. Basically, they know where they produce go.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Now to Jeanette. So Jeanette, now this is a bit serious question. Part of the book I've been reading, I can't help but notice you are very fascinated with urap bunjis.
Urap bunjis.
You like a lot of food, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But then when you mentioned something about urap, the
I love
words
urap.
just flows out. Like, why?
I-
Like, is it part of the culture you've been embracing?
I had it yesterday and the day before. Yeah, I just love urap anyway.
Yeah.
And you know, in Bali it's different to Java. And it's coming back to that coconut thing, you know, because in Bali we eat a lot of roasted, grated coconut. Yeah, and you know, urap bunjis, we serve it actually at Casaluna on our nasi campur. So yeah, I eat it a lot. But I love the flexibility of it. You know, you can use all your gorgeous organic vegetables as well. You know, you can use so many different things. And sometimes I even add kidney beans, things like that. So it's like a salad, really. Yeah, it's really versatile. But you have to have all those layers of flavor. You have to have the grated roasted coconut. So then you get the smoky thing. And then the sambal. So in Bali, it's sambal goreng. Then you have to have the lime leaves and and the beans and the sayur or whatever. So it incorporates that sweet, sour, salty, spicy combination that really is the foundation of Indonesian Asian food. And then you can bring in the bitter astringent element through the vegetables or you know, with gingers, etc. But yeah, I just love the freshness of urap, and I love the texture because it's chewy and just that multi-leveled thing. So it's really close to a salad, and it's seasonal too, because we only use what we buy in the market or grow, whatever at that time.
And it's always fresh, because when they serve it, they serve it like that. They don't come with a fridge, so you know. It's gonna be out by noon or not. It's not gonna be fresh.
Oh yeah, you've got to eat it at the time. Yeah, and you can add your kachamba or kedelai, you know, all those sort of sprouty things too. So it's super nutritious, actually.
True.
Yeah.
True. It's a whole full meal itself.
Yeah. I love it.
How I'm just gonna stick with you one more. How shocked were you when you came back on 84, was it? Then where you start your because on 74 you just came here.
Yeah,
you know,
introduction.
And then you come for the sequel, like in 84. That's where you dig deep and you went on. I mean, do share us further on that part.
So yeah, I came back in 84 and thought, now I'm going to learn how to cook this food, because I had no idea how to make anything. And when I came back after the first visit, 74, my sister and I, we tried to recreate what we had eaten, which was disastrous. You know, if you don't know anything about the food, how on earth can you recreate something like Indonesian food? So we were, you know, dreaming. But it was really hard also to find cookbooks, you know, especially Balinese food, which was what I was tasting. So 84, I thought, okay, this was my mission. I have to learn about the food. And so I sort of hung around warungs a little bit, etc. And then, of course, I met my husband, actually. There, you know, there's a bit of a, you know, romance factor to the story. It's always a good one. You know, the second day I met my husband too. So, so I thought, okay, I need to learn about the food. And when I went back to Melbourne, I still could not find anything like I had eaten. And even in the cookbooks that had, you know, Balinese chicken, they were nothing like the sort of chicken dishes I was eating in Bali, for example. And this still happens, by the way. So when I decided, okay, I'm going to come back to Bali and spend some time and research the food, as well as my relationship. So anyway, so I came back at 85 and thought, okay, the apprenticeship now begins. And I was very diligent. You know, every day I would learn from the pembantu in the kitchen where I was staying in my sister-in-law's place. And then also I would go to my husband's wood carving gallery where she cooked lunch for everybody. So I was kind of learning the basics of peasant food, actually, which, you know, is probably the most delicious, just really home cooked Indonesian food, but Balinese. So it's still a little bit different. So that was when my journey began, and I'm still learning. And I guess to then, like Lara, traveling to other islands and thinking, damn, the food's different, because every island's almost like a separate country in a way. There's overlaps, but there's fundamental differences too. So so that's when I started learning, and I loved it. I loved the journey. So it was always fun and exciting, and learning about all the different tropical ingredients. Just lemongrass back then was like, wow, and lime leaves too. That all those things were like gobsmacking because they were so unusual. Growing up with just bawang bombay and garlic, and we didn't even eat chili at home back then. So so it was a very exciting journey.
Must be a big jump for you guys. 84.
Yeah. Well, we were young, I was young, so it was okay. I probably wouldn't do it now. But back then, when you're young, you want to try everything and you're adventurous. So, yeah.
So I'm gonna go to all three of you. Young adventure on that basis. Travel eating. See, so when I travel, there was one project I was doing in Malacca. So I was there. The writings, it was written in Chinese. When I was looking for dinner, I couldn't read it. Tried my Google Translate with phone, did not work. So I'm like, people are queuing. Let's just queue. It was the best noodle I've ever eaten. I'm not sure because of the queuing, because of the surprise factor, but that's what I normally have, or that's my approach of doing it. So what are your tips on foods, and what do you think Indonesian locally or internationally should do or should have in mind when they talk about food? So any of you Ibu can answer.
So what you're saying is, what's the next step with Indonesian food?
What do you have any personal tips for people who's traveling? Like, do you just jump out, or what do you think should be in everybody's head when they're traveling?
Well, I think it's hard though. I mean, you're either adventurous or you're not really. I don't know what the others think. Like I know with my husband, he's only adventurous to a point, but then by day 2 is like he just wants rice and things like that. So, food's different for everybody. So, I mean, I've been adventurous my whole life, although, so I will do all those things. I'll follow my nose or follow cues and things like that. But, it's a hard one if you're not used to different flavors and things like that. I mean, it's part of the traveling experience, isn't it? But not everybody's going to join a queue just to try something, even if they don't know what it is, So, I don't know what the others have to say about that. Only because my husband's Balinese, Indonesian, so I know that sometimes he doesn't want to eat things that are really, really different. Yeah.
Okay.
I know for me, one of the things that I really enjoy doing, whether I'm in Indonesia or in another country, I guess especially around Southeast Asia, I feel that there is a very strong culture to buy food at the food market, and it's almost very competitive on who can get to the food market first, because all the good stuff is gone by 7 or 8 a.m. So for me, I think, a first insight into a food world starts at the food market, because you can see what is in season. You can look at what are the vegetables and produce that people are eating. If there's a lot of dried fish, or if there's a lot of fresh chicken, or sometimes you would see, some more, if I went to Manado or to Tomahon in Sulawesi, I went to the market there where there's python and bat and a whole host of animals that I wouldn't normally eat. And so I think it gives you a really good insight into how a community eats and what their food preferences are. And so for me, that's a really good kind of starting point. Go to the fresh food market, see what people are buying, see what people are eating. And I think also for me, talking to people, if I went to a pasar or a market in, let's say, in Jakarta, I would go to one that specializes in kueh, and I would speak to the food vendors and I would talk to them about the different kuehs, and I would ask them about where can I get the best this and where can I get the best that. And I think because particularly for Indonesians, and I think, certainly across most cultures, people are very proud of their food and they want to talk about it and they want to show you what are the specialties of my region, what are the dishes that are my comfort foods that on a really bad day that is going to cheer me up and make a bad day turn into a nice one. And so when you kind of talk to people about, because food is very emotional, food is very nostalgic. When I think of food, I think of family. I think of us sitting around a dinner table with my grandmother. My father worked 2 jobs when I was little. So the only time I would see him Monday to Friday was at the dinner table. So dinner became a very special time for us, as a family. And so for me, when someone asks me about my comfort foods, I can rattle off all of these wonderful dishes that my grandmother used to cook for me. And that's because they come with such, supercharged emotions. And I think that's why people love food so much, because it's so sensory, but it's also it is soul food. It's food of the heart. And so I think, food markets, looking for cues. I 100% believe in that, because I know when I was in, I think it was Jakarta, Ibu Nanik does the best banana fritters I've ever eaten. And there's always a queue and people are walking away with 5 or 6 or 20 boxes of these banana fritters. I mean, they're buying thousands of them. I've got no idea what they do with these banana fritters. They must be feeding a whole office. But, it is amazing to see how passionate people are about a single product, a banana fritter, something so simple, but something that gives so much joy. So for me, follow the cues, talk to people, go to the food market. Those are the 3 tips that I would give people. And I think you should be set on a good voyage and of following your nose from that point too.
Okay. So Ibu Potri, from your side? You're on mute, I suppose.
Pisang goreng Ibu Nani is very nice. Well, for me, as we remember when Beyonce traveled to Jakarta and then she ordered 5 kilo of rendang.
Really?
Sometimes, so Beyonce ordering 5 kilo of rendang. She said that this is a spicy steak. And then people are when people travel, they tend looking for artisan food or the authentic food or the original food. So sometimes they are depending on the food platform or they got it from social media, they got it from Instagram and looking for let's say in Jakarta, kuliner khas Jakarta. They were looking on that. And if it's the look good, and then they go to their place. They're looking on a restaurant. Sometimes they're looking for the picture itself or the queuing of the restaurant. For Indonesian, when I travel domestic, let's say I travel to Bali, I always look around. Sometimes I go to pasar, but mostly I look at on Instagram. Maybe I look at on the food reviewer. So which one is good, which one is authentic, which one is most loved, or GoFood lah. Let's say GoFood.
Yeah.
Every time, especially in this year, when I travel, I never go out from the hotel, but I should travel. What I do is I always GoFood. Or I do the maybe you call it Uber lah, Uber food, the London.
Yeah.
From there you can see what is most loved food, what is the traditional food. That's a new way to search the food.
That's true.
So another question from all 3 of you guys. Why do you think Indonesian food, according to yourself, is still not popular yet? So what are your opinions about it?
Who's first? Okay. I guess because there's just not a lot of it outside of Indonesia. We think about that a lot. Certainly in Melbourne, where I'm from, a lot of the Indonesian restaurants are actually, they're cute, but they're like a canteen for students. And so, we've got Padang and we have Javanese food and some Balinese food now, but I'm not sure how Balinese it tastes. So it's kind of been difficult to access it unless, you want to go to a sort of students hangout in a way. so I guess certainly in Australia, it's been fed by the students. I know Sydney has a bit more variety, and they're pretty good. I suppose it's just about how do you get the authentic flavors. Yeah, because even if you're Indonesian, doesn't mean you can cook Balinese food, and Balinese can't necessarily cook Javanese food. So I think that can be the problem right there. I mean, amongst that, the fact that it might not be a very authentic representation of that food, because as we all know, as we were saying before, how diverse the food is. So yeah, how do we make it the best we possibly can? And I guess too, if you're talking about a Western audience, they probably want to eat in somewhere it's not like a student's canteen. So you want something kind of middle level and kind of groovy and elegant. You have a lot of those in Jakarta. So certainly in Melbourne, we don't have that many finer dining Indonesian restaurants. And the best one we have right now, well, there's Sunda Dining and there's Makan. But Sunda Dining, actually, also the chef is Vietnamese. He's not even Indonesian. And Makan, of course, the girls are Gracia and Tasia from My Kitchen Rules. So they're doing a fantastic job. So I think it's changing, but it's, I guess until now, certainly in Melbourne, it's been mainly driven by students.
Okay. So to summarize, I suppose you're saying that first there should be the availability, and
yeah, it's
second,
kind of supply and demand, isn't it? Yeah.
And second is the place for it to be served. Like, it doesn't have to be a fancy dining, but at least it has to be decent.
Yeah, and perhaps just somehow there needs to be some sort of authenticity. Yeah, because I guess the temptation is that when you're in the West, you tend to cook for a Western palate, but that means then you're going to lose about 25% of the flavor. So, I guess you need to come to some kind of, it doesn't mean it has to be chili hot, but there has to be flavor, because it's the spice islands. And that's always my concern, is you can take out or reduce the chili, but you don't have to reduce everything. So, yeah.
Okay.
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay. So
I think,
what do you think, Lara?
I think I guess obviously I've written I guess I'll do a shameless plug here if you can't see it. I'm not sure how to put it here. There you go, coconut and sambal. So so I guess when I set out to write my book, something that was I guess a quite challenging decisions to make as you write recipes for a global audience is, one is how true to authenticity can you stay while still making the recipes accessible and approachable for a Western audience. And so I think certainly when we're talking about Indonesian restaurants, I definitely think that there's a responsibility to try to stay as authentic to the original as possible, because, as a restaurant, you should be able to source harder to find ingredients. Perhaps you can get it shipped in frozen. Things like, let's say, kencher or the kluwak nut, those types of ingredients. Now, if I go to my local supermarket in London, or if you're in California, or even if you're in Sydney, there are certain ingredients that you're just not going to be able to buy. Even if I go to my local supermarket here, I can't buy fresh turmeric. I have to only buy ground turmeric. If I buy fresh turmeric, it has to be at an Asian supermarket, which, I can go to in London. But if I go to my mother-in-law's house in West England, in a place called Devon, it's a country area, there's not an Asian supermarket in sight, and you won't be able to find lemongrass or lime leaves. They've got like coriander leaves, but obviously you don't use that much in Indonesian cooking. But it's very kind of simple stuff. So when I set out to write this book, there was a kind of a fine line of treading between saying, okay, if I stay completely authentic to the original, which some incredible masters of the cuisine have done, such as, William Wongso, as an example, his cookbooks are very authentic, or Sri Owen. But, in some ways as well, you have to ask yourself, well, what can the home cook recreate in their kitchen with ingredients that are available to them? You can't buy galangal in my local supermarket. I have to go to an Asian supermarket. So on. So in some instances, I think in terms of getting Indonesian food out there, it's where we're able, I guess, as people who are passionate about the cuisine, we have to ask ourselves, are we comfortable compromising some of those signature flavors, Kensha being one of them, galang gal being one of them, which you can get, but you know, in my recipes, I always put galang gal and put in brackets optional, or you know, it's hard, right? Because there's no real substitute for that. And but for me, it's about accessibility when you talk about bringing it into someone's home kitchen. And so I guess in terms of, I don't want to dilute the chili and I don't want to dilute the flavor, but when I came back from Indonesia, I had amassed about 300 recipes. I eliminated immediately about 150 I knew I couldn't recreate here. I'm never going to try and recreate rawon because I cannot get the kluwak nut here. But you know, then there were others that I thought, okay, some I can be completely authentic and true to the original, and others have to be adaptations. And I think in terms of getting Indonesian food to be more well known, I think we do have to think about accessibility as an important topic for people to want to cook that food in their home kitchen. And something like a nasi goreng or mi goreng, you can absolutely recreate with what you know you can buy in a normal supermarket. But when you kind of get to more complex dishes, you have to start asking yourself, should I put this recipe in the book, or can I find substitutes, you know, and you know, and you don't want to completely change the flavor profiles either. And I think something else is, you know, we're getting to the point in the food world where people are very interested in where they come from and where food comes from and contextualizing food. And I think it's also about making people interested in Indonesian food, not just for its flavors, but for its stories, its history, its legends. And so, you know, I know certainly there's some wonderful food writers out there who are writing about Indonesian food. I'm writing articles about Indonesian food, and I want people to kind of feel connected to the cuisine by learning about the history of rendang, you know, learning about the philosophy of, you know, merandang, merantau as like the pilgrimage of the Minangkabau, you know, boys and so on. And so, you know, teaching people about food makes it, again, it's emotional and people start to connect to it. And I think the third thing that would help to get Indonesian food better known is influencing the influencers. And I know I kind of hate that phrase in some ways, but when we think about Beyonce buying 5 kilos of rendang, or, you know, certain, you know, I guess well-known voices in the industry saying, I bought this book or I ate this meal at this restaurant, and talking about it, you suddenly become a talking point. So I think, you know, we need more ambassadors of the cuisine. I think we need to get more influencers talking about it. We need more food writers to be writing recipes, not just, you know, in Indonesia, but also, you know, in American food media, Australian food media. Keep on getting the word out there about Indonesian food, and I think its time will come. And I'm certainly seeing a change. You know, since my book's come out, I've definitely seen, you know, quite a few people get excited about it, and I think the time is ripe. You know, we just need more voices, more passion, and it's going to have its time.
Yeah. So for the audience, when you eat Indonesian food, please post. So at least people know the food is there. So we can help all these chefs that, hey, food is there.
Yeah.
And from Fortri, before we wait for the question from audience, I believe. Yeah, Fortri, you're next.
Well, I totally agree with Lara. I'm sure maybe someday I will open Tante Sayur in London. Well, yes, from our point of view, I mean, farmer or distributor like us, we really need more influencer on Indonesian food, because Indonesian food there's a lot of Indonesian recipe, but it's not simple, and it's not sometimes abroad you cannot find the ingredients. So because we don't serve that much of, let's say we didn't divide, this is Indonesian kind of breakfast, or this is Indonesian kind of lunch, or this is Indonesian kind of lunchbox. That's simple and everyone can do it. I mean, Indonesian food, the base itself is like you said before, it's a coconut, it's an egg, it's anything coconut. We need more, as like Lara said, we need more influencer on Indonesian food. We need someone to export more on the the sauce, Indonesian sauce.
You're right.
Typical Indonesian sambal, because to I mean to make everyone know about Indonesian food, you have to create the instant food first. After they know about the instant food, and then they will crave for the real taste, and then they make it themselves.
Yeah, because that's what they
But
did in
with
Thailand, I think. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
We need to start with the something simple first.
Yeah, because like if you look at, for example, Chinese food, I mean, really, all you have to do is actually just you just buy the sauces in a way, like, but yeah, if you're and the same with Thai food. I think that's when they turned it around, wasn't it? They invested in all the bottled sauces and the paste, and so suddenly on every corner in Australia there was a Thai restaurant, but also you could suddenly buy, as you say, the prepared paste. Not saying that's the way we want to cook, but as you say, that's one way to get the word out there, isn't it? And making high quality paste, I guess, available. That's one solution.
Also, like I guess when you have an ambassador of the cuisine, it takes a team of people to promote Indonesian food. And if I look at my book as an example, it's not just me. I've got a publicist in America, in Australia, in London, and they're talking. Well, my book's been in the New York Times. It's going to be I'm going to cook a live segment with Drew Barrymore on her TV show in America in February. Nigella Lawson chose it as a cookbook of the week. There's been a lot of press, and that was not because of me, but because I had a team of people who were talking to all of these different connections around the world, and getting the name of that book out there. And so I think with when we have a source or a restaurant or an ambassador of the cuisine or someone that's passionate about it, it's also leveraging networks and trying to build up a trend, or getting people to talk about it, making it a talking point somehow, making it different somehow. And I think people are always looking for the next trend and the next big thing. So I think it's kind of getting people excited about it, bringing fun into it, and building a team to support us to get the name of it out there as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, also like Gordon Ramsay, I think that was a really great moment for Indonesia. Everyone was so excited, there he was cooking rendang with Om William and Ade Putri. But that's correct, Lara, to have ambassadors and people that really push the story and the cause.
Outside, me in Indonesian gastronomy community, recently we just made a full-on list proposal sent to the government. Most of the topics we discuss here is part of the list, so it's part of our vision, and combined with all the other communities and association in Indonesia, we made a full tick list, sent it to the government. We are basically pushing that idea through. So fingers crossed, we push it out to 2021.
Fantastic. Well done.
Thank you. So Ibu Ita, do we have questions from the audience?
Actually, we have a couple of questions that I would like to ask all of the panelists. First one is for Lara, actually. This is from Dita from Jakarta. She asks that, what is the most recreated dish from your book that you found tagged on your social media?
Actually, it's nasi goreng. And I think the reason for that is because nasi goreng is a dish that was born out of leftover rice. And obviously it is packed full of flavor, but it's something that if you have leftover rice, you can whip up in 20 to 30 minutes, and you can eat it on a Tuesday night as comfort food for dinner, or if you want to have a date night with your partner, it's a very luxurious meal you can eat on a Saturday night. So I think it's one of those kind of dishes that kind of crosses, different boundaries and different worlds. And that, I think, people know what nasi goreng is, but for whatever reason, that is the dish that everyone's gotten really excited about. Nasi goreng, mee goreng is another one. A lot of people have recreated the soto ayam. They've gotten really excited about that as well. And I also have a pandan and coconut cake that is in the book that people are absolutely loving. And I think that's because they weren't as familiar with pandan as a flavor and also as a coloring agent, turning a cake green. They found that really, really exciting. So those are probably the ones that, have been the most popular.
About Uncle Roger, have you ever talked to him?
That's a good idea.
Yes, it's a good idea.
We need an Indonesian Uncle Roger though, yeah.
Yes, agree.
Yeah, or Auntie Roger.
Yeah.
Tante Roger.
We need more figure. I
Yeah,
mean,
we do.
for the
we
food
do.
figure.
Fun. Yeah.
Yes.
Like Lucu, like that. Yeah. Yeah. Betul.
Well, we have Renata Muluk, William Gozali
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah, betul.
Those young and fresh
Yeah.
influencer, they
Yeah.
need to recook more of Indonesian food.
Yeah, Renata's amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
I think our time is almost up. I think I will ask Mas Vishal to give a conclusion of our conversation.
So I suppose we all agree on one point that we need more figure. We need to scream the Indonesian food, not just from their flavors, but on marketing wise. We need ambassadors, lots of it, because every region is different. North of Bali, Lawar will be different from central, will be different from south, and it goes on. Same thing with Jakarta. I grew up a bit in Singapore. It's also going to be different. So yeah, we need more of that. I suppose we all can agree on that part. And last but not the least, I suppose to summarize it in the shortest way possible, to more coconut and sambal, I suppose. to summarize Indonesian food in general, because whatever you eat, you're gonna get
totally
sambal.
agree.
Hate it or love it, it's gonna be there somewhere.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, I suppose itu, Mbak Ita.
We can't do without sambal.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up our session, let us take a virtual photo session, shall we?
Oh, okay.
And 1, 2, and 3, cheese. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
It has been a pleasure.
Okay.
I'll see you around, see you on your Instagrams.
Dan
Thank you again for your time.
yang sudah membawakan perbincangan yang sangat menarik, tapi sayang sekali waktu kita sudah habis untuk saat ini. Mudah-mudahan di kemudian hari kita bisa berkumpul kembali dan bisa berbicara tentang topik-topik lain yang lebih menarik. Oke, saya ingin mengucapkan terima kasih kepada semua Leap Friends yang telah hadir hari ini. Juga tak lupa kepada para pendukung acara ini, Government Partners, Kantor Staf Presiden, Kementerian Koperasi dan UKM RI, ada Learning Partners, Ernst & Young Indonesia, United in Diversity Ideas, McKinsey Indonesia, Egon Zehnder, Endeavor, EVPN, Yayasan Jurnal Perempuan, juga ada sponsorship partner, ada Permata Bank, Pigeon, Toyota, Harta Dinata Abadi, GoWork, McDonald's, Country Choice, Sosro by Rekso, Claris, Post-it, Sue Ora Jamu, Ultima, Taman Impian Jaya Ancol, Edavos, Laci Asmara, dan juga AXA. Lalu our Knowledge and Community Partners, Dharma Wanita Persatuan, ada IWAPI, ada Fatayat NU, Women in Mining and Energy, Institut Komunikasi dan Bisnis LSPR Jakarta, LSBE Jakarta, HIPI, Himpaudi, Perhumas, CISC Indonesia, PKK Bitung, Vokasi UI, jennyfengshuionline.com, Light Givers, 1001 Buku, Indonesia Berkebun, Zam Living, Safe Janda, Perempuan Berkisah, YAI, lalu juga Indonesian Gastronomy Community, of course, Kids Coaching, Prima Flora, Warbis Pratama. Lalu strategic partners ada Dewi, Jakarta Fashion Week, beautyparty.id, Jakarta Youth Meetup, Pesona, Prima Rasa, Jakarta Eat Festival, dan Cannes Lions. Lalu, the last but not least, our media partners, Indika 91.6 FM, O Channel, Scarf Media, Web TV Asia, Women's Obsession, Metro TV, Media Indonesia, Medcom.id, IDN Times, dan juga A+. Semoga ilmu yang kita dapatkan hari ini bisa menjadi inspirasi dan motivasi untuk kita semua. Jangan lupa Lip Friends untuk terus bergabung dengan Lip Summit 2020 besok, mulai pukul 14 hingga 17.30. Semua acara Lip Summit bisa diikuti di sosial media @wanita-network, juga @lipsummit.id, Facebook Wanita Network, YouTube Wanita Network, dan juga website www.wanitanetwork. Sampai jumpa dan selamat sore.